This is a dramatized story inspired by real debt situations. For educational and entertainment purposes only. Not legal or financial advice.
Section 1. Hook. 30 seconds. I had $79,000 in debt at 44. The restaurant was padlocked, my credit cards were maxed, and my wife had stopped asking where the money went. Not because she trusted me, but because she already knew the answer. At 44, I thought I had everything figured out. 12 years in the food business, a loyal customer base, a lease I'd signed with both hands shaking from excitement, not fear. What happened over the next 8 months? That's what I need to tell you, because it almost cost me everything. And what I found on the other side changed the way I think about money forever. Section 2. Reality. 3 to 4 minutes. Let me give you the real numbers, not rounded up, not softened. My restaurant, a mid-size Italian place called Caldone's in suburban Columbus, Ohio, had been open for 6 years. Good years. A Yelp rating I was proud of. A Saturday night wait list. We were doing around $380,000 in annual revenue at our peak. Then COVID hit, and then, just when we thought we were recovering, inflation hit the food supply chain like a freight train. Ground beef up 34%, olive oil up 28%. My linen service raised rates twice in 1 year. I took out a small business loan in 2021 to renovate the dining room and upgrade the kitchen equipment, $48,000 at 9. 2% interest through a regional lender. I told myself I'd pay it back in 3 years. Easy. Then I started leaning on credit cards to cover payroll gaps. 1 card, then 2, then 3. By the time I closed Caldone's in March, with a handwritten note on the door that I taped up at 6 a.m., so I wouldn't have to look my staff in the eye. Here's where I stood. Small business loan balance, $41,200 remaining. Credit card number 1, a Chase Sapphire business card, $14,800. Credit card number 2, a Capital One Venture, $9,400. Credit card number 3, a personal Discover card I'd started using for the business, $7,600. A personal car loan on the F-150 I used for supply runs, $6,100. Total, $79,100 in debt, 0 income, 0 savings, and a FICO score that had dropped from 718 to 581 in 11 months. My wife, Denise, was working as a dental hygienist, bringing home about $52,000 a year, which sounds like something, until you account for our mortgage at $1,640 a month, 2 kids in middle school, utilities, groceries, and the minimum payments on 3 credit cards that were now hitting us for a combined $890 every single month. The math didn't work. Anyone with a calculator could see that. But I wasn't using a calculator. I was using denial. Section 3. Emotional crisis. 3 to 4 minutes. The collection calls started in May. Not the polite kind, the kind that come at 8:02 in the morning, 2 minutes after the legal window opens, and then again at 4:45 in the afternoon, and sometimes at 8:58 at night. I started letting everything go to voicemail. I had a folder on my phone I called Don't Open. It was just screenshots of numbers I didn't recognize. 17, 22, eventually over 40 numbers. A collection agency had purchased my oldest credit card debt, that Discover card, and they were not patient people. The rep who called most often had a flat, bored voice, like he'd said the same sentence 10,000 times. "Mr. Caldone, this is your opportunity to resolve your outstanding balance before further action is taken." Click. I stopped sleeping in our bedroom. I told Denise it was because I was staying up late job hunting. That was partially true, but mostly I just didn't want her to feel me lying awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. One night, I remember this specifically because it was our son Marcus's 13th birthday. Denise found a stack of unopened envelopes in the cabinet above the washing machine. I had been hiding mail. Not well, apparently. She sat down at the kitchen table and opened every single one while I stood in the doorway. She didn't yell. That would have been easier. She just looked at me and said, "How long have you known it was this bad?" I said, "A while." She said, How long is a while, Marcus? I said. About 8 months. She got up, went into the bedroom, and closed the door. And I sat at that kitchen table at midnight, surrounded by past due notices, and I thought, this is what failing looks like. Not dramatic, not loud, just a closed door and a stack of paper. I was 44 years old. I had built something with my own hands and watched it fall apart, and I had no idea what to do next. Section 4, Wrong Choices, 2 to 3 minutes. I want to be honest about the mistakes, because if you're watching this and you're in a similar place, I don't want you to repeat what I did. Mistake number 1. The balance transfer. In January, when I could still qualify for new credit, I opened a balance transfer card with a 0% promotional APR for 15 months. I moved $8,000 from the Chase card onto it. Felt like I was being smart, felt like I was buying time. What I didn't factor in, the transfer fee, was 3%, so I immediately owed $240 more. And when the 15 months ended and I hadn't paid it off, because I had no income, the interest rate jumped to 26. 99%. That smart move cost me more than the original debt would have. Mistake number 2. The payday loan. I borrowed $1,500 from a payday lender in April to cover a car payment and keep the lights on. 2 weeks later, I owed $1,120. I couldn't pay it back in full, so I rolled it over. By the time I finally cleared it 2 months later, I had paid nearly $20,400 on a $1,500 loan. Mistake number 3, I touched my 401k. I had about $34,000 in a retirement account from a previous management job before I opened the restaurant. I withdrew $12,000. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I'd pay it back. What I didn't fully account for, the 10% early withdrawal penalty, the federal income tax on the withdrawal, which pushed our household into a higher bracket. By the time the IRS was done with that $12,000, I had actually netted about $8,400, and now I had a tax liability I hadn't planned for either. Every one of these choices felt like a solution in the moment. Every single one made the hole deeper. Section 5, Turning Point, 2 to 3 minutes. It was a Tuesday night in June. I was sitting in the parking lot of a Panera. I'd been going there to use the Wi-Fi for job applications because I was embarrassed to sit at home and apply for jobs in front of Denise. And I typed into Google, "What to do when you can't pay your business debt." One of the results was a nonprofit credit counseling agency, a legitimate one, affiliated with the NFCC, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. I almost didn't click it. I thought it was going to be a scam, like every other ad I'd seen promising to settle your debt for pennies on the dollar. But I clicked it, and I filled out a form. And the next morning, a counselor named Patricia called me back. She didn't try to sell me anything in the first 10 minutes. She just asked me to walk her through my numbers, all of them. And I did, for the first time out loud to another human being who wasn't Denise. Every card, every balance, the business loan, the car, the 401k withdrawal, the payday loan, all of it. And when I finished, she didn't say, "Wow," or "That's bad." She said, "Okay, you have real options here. Let me tell you what they are." That sentence. I'm not being dramatic when I say that sentence is what kept me from doing something I couldn't take back. She walked me through 3 paths. A debt management plan through the credit counseling agency, which could potentially reduce my interest rates and consolidate my monthly payments into one. A consultation with a bankruptcy attorney to explore whether Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 made more sense given my situation, or a direct negotiation approach with individual creditors, which she was honest about, telling me it was slower and less predictable than the other options. She told me to consult a licensed professional before making any decisions, and she gave me a referral to a bankruptcy attorney who offered a free initial consultation. I went home that night and I told Denise everything. Again, all of it. But this time I had a folder of options, not just a stack of shame. Section 6. Educational info. 1-2 minutes. Here's what I learned during those consultations, and I want to share this because I genuinely didn't understand any of it before. Chapter 7. Bankruptcy is sometimes called liquidation bankruptcy. It can discharge, meaning legally eliminate, most unsecured debt, like credit cards and medical bills, relatively quickly, often within 3 to 6 months. But there's a means test. Your income has to fall below a certain threshold, and it stays on your credit report for 10 years. Chapter 13. Bankruptcy is different. It's a reorganization. You keep your assets, including your home, and you enter a 3 to 5 year repayment plan based on what you can actually afford. It stays on your credit report for 7 years, and it can stop a foreclosure. The bankruptcy attorney explained that my business loan, because the business had been an LLC, was partially my personal liability and partially not. That part got complicated, and that's exactly why he told me I needed proper legal counsel before making any moves. Debt consolidation through a nonprofit credit counseling agency, different from for-profit debt settlement companies, which carry real risks, could potentially reduce interest rates through what's called a debt management plan. Your FICO score may take a short-term hit, but consistent payments over time can actually help rebuild your credit. And regarding that 401k withdrawal and the IRS liability, yes, that's a separate conversation. Tax debt doesn't go away easily, and there are specific IRS programs for that. Again, please consult a licensed professional before making any of these decisions. What worked for my situation may not be right for yours. Everyone's debt picture is different. Section 7. Resolution. 1-2 minutes. It's been 7 months since that parking lot in Panera. I'm not going to tell you everything is fixed. It's not. I'm working as a kitchen manager at a corporate restaurant group. $58,000 a year, which is not what I imagined for myself at 44. But it's income. It's consistent. Denise and I are in couples counseling. That's something I never would have admitted a year ago. But the debt wasn't just a financial problem. It was a communication problem, a trust problem. And we're working on it. I entered a debt management plan through the nonprofit agency Patricia referred me to. My 3 credit card interest rates were negotiated down significantly. I now make 1 consolidated monthly payment instead of 3. It's not fast. It's a 4-year plan. But for the first time in over a year, I know exactly what I owe. I know exactly what I'm paying. And the collection calls have stopped. My FICO score is back up to 604. Not great, but it's moving in the right direction. The thing I want you to hear, as if you're sitting somewhere right now with a stack of envelopes you haven't opened, is that the worst moment wasn't losing the restaurant. It was the silence, the hiding, the shame that made every problem twice as heavy because I was carrying it alone. The moment I said the numbers out loud to a real person, the weight shifted, not gone, but shared. You don't have to have a plan to make the first call. You just have to make the call. Section 8. CTA. Get the free debt checklist in the description. Link below.